welcome back to the Wasteland, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about 5 surprisingly good perks. Recently we talked about 10 deceptively bad perks, or maybe not the best perks in Fallout New Vegas. Now we're going to be going over 5 surprisingly good perks. These are perks that may not be very obvious in why they are good, as opposed to other perks that are just outright good, like better crits where you get extra crit damage. That one's going to be good. Or something like Cowboy, where you get more damage if you're using any Cowboy weapon. So if you're using those weapons, it's obviously going to be good. These are some of the less obvious ones. So let's begin. Coming in at our number 5 spot, we have Hit the Deck. Hit the Deck is a level 12 perk that requires 70 explosives, and this one is a very straightforward perk that you can take once. This one gives you plus 25 damage threshold against explosives. Damage resist towards explosives sounds like a pretty good deal. A lot of scary weapons are explosive weapons that humans can have, things like the missile launcher. You don't really run into people using Fatmen in Fallout New Vegas, so that's good. But the missile launcher can be quite scary. Grenade launchers, thrown grenades like plasma grenades can be pretty scary. And there are a couple enemies that use these. That's not the huge advantage of Hit the Deck though. The huge advantage is that it also counts towards your own explosives, which if you're like me, you're way more likely to hit yourself with those explosives than get hit by other explosives. So Hit the Deck just becomes super useful so that you're not such a hazard to yourself. And that is really, really useful. You can take this on other characters too, even if you're not using explosives, and it can be okay. There's not a whole lot of enemies that use explosives, but it is still a net positive overall. This is definitely going to be better on an explosive character build to where you're just not going to be as much a hazard to yourself, so that's pretty nice. Coming in at number 4, we have Packrat. Packrat is a level 8 perk that requires 5 intelligence and 50 barter. What Packrat does is it makes it so every item that you're carrying that weighs 2 weight or less will then have its weight cut in half. So anything that's 2 will go to 1, anything that's 1 will go to a half, anything that's a half will go to a quarter. Pretty straightforward here, and you might not think that this one's all that good, especially compared to some of the other carry weight perks, like Burden to Bear or Strong Back that just gives you a flat 50 carry weight. And if you're playing on normal difficulty, I would agree with that. I would say that those are just kind of better perks than Packrat. Packrat is still a nice perk, but it's not quite as good as them. This mostly comes in play in the hardcore difficulty, where a lot more things weigh something, specifically ammo. Ammo always weighs something, and assuming that you're running any character that's not a melee or an unarmed character, and even if you are running those characters, you're still probably going to be carrying around a weapon so that you can kind of bait things away to engage in a fight with them. You're going to be carrying around some amount of ammo. And Packrat makes it so literally every ammo in the game besides mini nukes is cut in half. So this is very, very useful on any type of build. It's particularly useful on explosive builds, because if you're carrying around things like frag grenades, frag mines, really any sort of explosive that you're carrying around, they're probably going to weigh you down half a weight. And that can add up if you stockpile quite a few of these, especially if you're making these with perks like Mad Bomber. So having Packrat to cut all those down does make it so those characters can move around a whole lot better. On the hardcore difficulty, I would argue that Packrat's actually better and more convenient than the other weight-related perks like Burden to Bear and like Strongback. On the less difficulty, I wouldn't argue that. It can still be useful because there are plenty of items that you might pick up that are still worth something, but they weigh 2 weight or less. This can also affect certain weapons, particularly like melee and unarmed weapons that will weigh half a weight or less too, so it's kind of useful for them. Just means that you can just pick up more stuff, so that's always handy. And if you're like me, you can just stack all of the weight carry perks so that you can take all the stuff that you'd like and not really have to worry about getting weighed down. Coming in at number 3, we've got Radchild. Radchild is a fantastic perk that I have underestimated in the past, and it is a really strong perk. This is a level 4 perk that just requires 70 survival, so you can get this one very early on, and this one makes it so that you get bonus healing based on the amount of radiation that you have. This one is also better for the hardcore difficulty because all healing in the hardcore difficulty is healing over time, so even things like stim packs do not heal you instantly, they take time to tick, which makes it so that they're not as useful on that difficulty. They're still quite useful, they're still a really good healing item, but food and drink are generally better in that regard than something like stim packs, at least in terms of getting up health faster. You can always stack all of them together and get a whole bunch of health though. Radchild gives you plus 2 health for every 200 rads that you have, up to plus 8 health per second for 800 rads. So all you have to do with this is get up to that 800 rads and you have 8 health a second regen. That is a lot of regen already, and it will make it so you're saving quite a bit of your healing, which again can be really useful on the hardcore difficulty. Even on the regular difficulty, this one can still be very useful because you're at least saving the stim packs, so if you want to sell them as money and just treat them as money, you can absolutely do that. This one also, if you just stack it with all the health regen perks and a bunch of health regen items, you basically become immortal so long as something can't just one-shot you. So Radchild is a very, very strong perk. It does come with some downside because you are getting irradiated. So once you do have like 800 rads, you have minuses to your special stats. Those don't always matter though, especially in a pinch where I would rather just be healing and not dying and not having to use my extra healing. Coming in at our number 2 spot, we have Chemist. Chemist is a very, very strong perk. It's surprisingly strong. So Chemist requires you to be level 14 and have 60 medicine. This one you can take once, and this makes it so it increases the duration of all chemical effects by 100%. So it doubles their overall effectiveness. This is really good. Just reading this could make it seem like this is not really the best because if you're not taking chems, then this one's not going to help you out a whole lot. And again, this is better on the hardcore difficulty than it is on the regular difficulty, just because you may not need to be taking chems, but if you're playing on the very hard difficulty, chems are really, really strong in New Vegas. On top of that, this one actually doesn't only work for chems. It also works for magazines, funny enough. So if you take a skill magazine, it also gives you double the duration of time that you would have with that skill magazine, which may not be that impactful depending on which ones you're using, but it could be useful if you're using like the crit magazine. This also works with stealth boys as well, so you can do stealth boys and you can have Lily as a companion, which you get stealth girl on, and then you just have a very long duration on a stealth boy, so that could be really useful if you're trying to pickpocket or do a bunch of sneak attacks or maybe not be seen in particular areas, whatever it might be. This also synergizes really well with the Implant GRX perk because that also counts towards it where you get Turbo. Turbo is the strongest chem in the game in my opinion. There's a lot of really strong chems, but doubling the time that Turbo has, and especially doubling the time that Implant GRX has, makes it so you're basically immortal and you just do so much damage within a short amount of time. You can also stack this with other chems. You can stack Buff Out to make it so that you survive more and can carry around more weight. You can stack this with Psycho so that you're doing more damage. Slasher so you're also doing more damage. Medic so you take reduced damage even longer. It would also work with Jet to recover action points faster. There's so many chems that you can stack this with. Rushing Water's another one. And funny enough, all consumables that have time effects, which is basically all consumables in the game, you just get double the amount of duration. So you get so much value from Chemist, especially on the hardcore difficulty where you can make it so your drugs last longer, your chems last longer, as well as all of your other bonuses like magazines, food, Implant GRX. Everything just lasts even longer, and that makes it so you're even stronger during the combat sections when you need to use those things, and you're even better in the situations where you don't need to use those things, but you're trying to like hack into computers or pick locks or whatever it might be. You just get bonus duration on top of that. So Chemist is a very, very strong perk, one of the strongest in the game. And then for my number 1 pick for surprisingly good perks, we have Them's Good Eating. So Them's Good Eating is an Old World Blues perk. This one requires you to be level 20 and have 55 survival. And what this one does is whenever you kill a living creature, you have a 50% chance of finding thin red paste or blood sausages on them. Now, you might just be looking at that and not really knowing what thin red paste or blood sausages do. They are just healing items, but they're some of the best healing items in the game. Where thin red paste will give you more maximum HP as well as heal you over time for 30 seconds. Blood sausage will also give you more maximum HP and heal you over time, but heal a little bit more, but for less duration than the thin red paste. These can also be cooked into the black blood sausage and the thick red paste that are even better healing than this. So these ones are really good for the heals, especially on the hardcore difficulty. Most of these perks are kind of better on the hardcore difficulty than they are on the normal difficulty. Even on the normal difficulty though, this is really good. This basically means that you have infinite healing that you can always pick up. The blood sausage and the thin red paste does not weigh very much. This is 1/4 of a weight for the blood sausage and 1/10 of a weight for thin red paste. That is cut in half if you have something like Packrat, which is also really good for this. And on top of that, these things sell for a ton of money. So if you just want to break the economy, this is definitely one of the best ways to break it. You can kill any living creature that you want, and you'll probably get multiple stacks of these from them. So go anywhere that you would like. You can even just be fighting like the regular geckos that you find around Good Springs, or some rad scorpions, or whatever it might be, and you can just collect all this stuff, sell it to whatever vendor. You'll have so much caps, you'll have so much money overall, that you really don't need to do anything else to exploit money. It's just really good. And it counts even better as healing since you can stack these together. And they basically become like my stim packs into the later game of New Vegas. I still take stim packs and you can still stack all of them together. That's also really strong. But these ones are just such nice healing over time. They just, if you ever are running into like a stim pack situation to where you just aren't having enough healing, try going with this or try going with Radchild. They are very, very good perks for that. And that'll do it for my 5 surprisingly good perks in New Vegas. What other perks do you think belong on this list, or what other perks would you include? What are some surprisingly good perks to you, or some surprisingly bad perks like we did on the last list? I would love to hear that. Be sure to put those down in the comments below. Thank you guys so very much for watching this. Hope that you guys enjoyed it. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.